Greetings, object coder. Um, let's continue on with dynamic array and let's code up some of the core. See if we can get some of those tests passing. Um, what is the core? Well, if we studied the dynamic array and understand that domain model, we know that the core is going to be the object structure. That's a fundamental part of the object, of course. In other words, the instance variables, right? Those are fundamental, and then a method like add. If we can't add to this dynamic array, we're not going to have anything in our list, right? So the add method is really fundamental. Getting an element from that list is fundamental, or we won't be able to get anything out of it, right? And then probably setting an element. If we have these three set up, I'm going to throw a toString in there also, just because it's so helpful to actually see what our object is doing. All right, so let's try to code those up. As we study the dynamic array, we realize there's 4 instance variables, and we can find that actually right here in the design areas. We can see these done for us, so we will code those up first. And I won't have you watch me type all those. That would not be very exciting at all. But this is what it would look like, right? We're just actually coding these variables. So dynamic array, not the test, but the actual dynamic array. Get rid of the to-do and slap those in. We've got our 4 instance variables here. And capacity, all that is a note that, to me, that says capacity is derived. So that's another important property of the dynamic array, but we can derive it. It's just the length of the fixed array, isn't it? Hint, hint. So there we have those. All right, so now what else are we going to do in terms of the core? Well, we said the add method, right? The add method was very important to us. And let's just take a look here. There it is, the add method. Okay, so let's take a look at add. In our template, it's just a to-do item here. It says it's just an alias for add last, so we can get that one done in 1 second flat, right? This add last. And we're adding the new element, of course. Passed in parameter, we have to use it. We don't want to ignore it, or whoever sent that message would be upset with us if we didn't use it. So there we go, we're done with this method. However, this method is also not coded. The add last is not coded, so we have to code that. All right, let's see what we can do there. And we're not going to code all of the grow functionality because we want to save that for you, but we're just going to get things working so that we can add elements, a small number of elements, before hitting our capacity. And let's see what that might look like. So we did some of that actually under in our algorithm work. If we toggle around here a little bit, we did something like this here. We figured out would actually work for us. So I'm just going to put that in, and that's just going to be temporary here while we code it for reference, something like that. And I actually changed that a little bit and coded it, just changed the name here. So we're assuring the capacity. It's always good, especially of your helper methods, not public methods, because on an override we can't change the name. It has to be added just like that. But our helper methods, which I'll show you in a second, we can change the names to make them make more sense for ourselves. I'm assuring the capacity, basically assuring we can add one more element, right? If not, we'll have to do a grow. And then once we are sure of our capacity, we can then set the next element. Just set it into the fixed array. Remember, we have those 4 elements, and I should also mention that we really want to understand these. So if we need to, we want to hit this again, hit the this section here again to really get a good understanding of our IVARs, so we can code nicely and things make sense as we code. So what are we doing? We're assuring we have capacity, then we're just setting the value at the next position, and that will be the position that is so if we have 5 elements, the last position then the actual index would be 4, right? Length minus 1, size minus 1, and then 4 plus 1. So it would actually be in that position right there where we'd set the value, set the element. And then we're just going to increase the size. Remember, we have the size IVAR, so we just want to increase it. I like helper methods. These are all the 3 helper methods. You don't need to add helper methods. You can add 0 helper methods, or you can add many, many, many helper methods. I tend to add more on the many side. The last actual index, as we discussed, is just that. That's just a private method, just to make things easier for myself. Assure capacity. Gonna defer that and do that later as we're building our confidence up here. That's a good size. That's really the essence of the dynamic array. And then we have another helper method here, a few more here that we'll be referencing later on. So let's see here. So at last we have, and why is increase size not working? Because I renamed it to increase actual size. Has to match, I think. Let me see. Let's see here. Increase. Don't have that method yet. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Yes. There it is. In my helper methods at the bottom here. They can be anywhere you want, but put them at the bottom. Increase size just increases the size IVAR. Just increments it by the additional size that was added. All right. So that is that. Now let's see here. That's the add method, right? Yes, that's the add method. Okay. Now we also have to be able to construct our object. I would say for sure, right? That's actually even more important than these core. We need to be able to construct. Most of the constructors are provided in the template, but this one is not. Here, we have to do it here. So we need to initialize things. I like a helper method called initialize, and then we have to use this IVAR here, of course, to actually set the value that the object user passed in. So right like that, we set it, and then what does initialize do with it? This initializes our object, and I would say add a couple more things here. This growth factor equals default growth factor, and this initial capacity. Remember, these are our IVARs, so we want to initialize all of our IVARs really in the initialization of the object. Initial capacity equals the default initial capacity. All right, and then we want to construct, well, one more thing. Let's get the size set. Initially, our size is 0, right? We haven't added anything into the array yet, dynamic array. So initially it's 0. Then we want to initialize the fixed array, and we want to initialize it to the initial capacity, which we have set. So we can do that like this. And that is actually, this code here is taken from, actually on the project itself. If we look at the, let's see here, suggestions, there's suggestions here, and this is how it's a little bit tricky. That's why it's provided here for you, how to construct a fixed array in Java. A little bit tricky in Java. So our initialization is done. So we're doing pretty good here. What else do we have to do for our core functionality? Let's take a look here. We did add. We want to do get, and that will be easier than add, I do believe. Let's see here. Okay, we have add set up. Should be working. Now, why did I get one wrong here? Increase size. Yes, okay. Increase size. Let's get rid of the algorithm we pasted in there temporarily. All right. Now, where is our get method? Here, probably right up here. Right here, right here. Here it is. Okay. We want to code that. Well, that is actually an easy method because we are going to actually just reference our fixed array. In a typical array type of fashion, we will say our fixed array instance variable, and we will simply do that. Now there's one thing missing here, and that is that we will have to return an exception. What if somebody comes in, we have only 5 elements in our list, what if somebody comes in with an index of 1,000. We only have 5. That's a bad index, right? What if somebody, for some reason, comes in with an index of -8? That's always going to be a bad index, right? A valid index would be, and I like to use helper methods, so I've added a little method here called check index, which returns true if the index is valid. And this is the logic for a valid index. All right, so that's how that would work. And let's see what we can do here. I would then do something like this. I would suggest doing something like this on the get method again. Let's go back there. Before we do this, because this is only for a valid case, let's first check. It's good at the top of a method to check for exception cases. So if we have a bad index, in other words, if check index returns false, because we have the not there, we're going to then throw an exception. And again, another helper method here. This is how we can throw a runtime exception right here. A couple little helper methods to do that. And you don't need the helper methods again. You can do it how you want to, but that's one way to do it. Then we have a couple methods. Well, actually, let's just keep going with our core here. Set. Set is one additional method for our core that would be good to have in place. Let's take a try at that. Let's actually copy what we have here, because let's see, where is set? There you are. We don't have to return anything. We know that. The check index is still a valid thing. We want to change the label a little bit to set here. Set index, actually new element. This is just a label. Okay. Now it says we have to return the old element, right? Return previous. So let's grab the previous. That's going to be of type E, and that's going to be old element equals, we just coded this method, get. We're going to use it right away. And it's going to be at the index that was passed in. So now we have the old element. We can return that element at the end of the method to make this happy, make that spec happy. Now this fixed array at the index, we are going to say equals new element. So there we go. We have our core in place. All right, the next session we'll actually start testing. So we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.